So we just got the tires the other day. I got to figure out how we're going to build up an axle system for this. I was looking at Justin's plan. He sort of has this little bump out type thing. I'd like to try to eliminate that. I would like to go to the store, play around with a couple different ideas and see what we can try to figure out. I have a few ideas in mind, and maybe I'll just show it to you once we get to the store. I'm trying to figure out this axle system piece here. I could take a piece like this, lop this off, bolt it up to the 2x4 and run a bolt like this through that would go into the wheels. That way put the stress points here. I could come in by a flat bar or an angle piece like this, maybe drill it out, weld a grade 8 bolt into something like this, or even take some pieces like this, put it on both sides of the 2x4, drill a hole through, and put a lot of the pressure points actually on the metal. Yeah, or I could even take a piece like this, bolt this up into there and actually weld sort of an axle, something like this into it. I think at this point I just need to pick something and go with it. So this is what I ended up settling on. I got some of this perforated tube here, putting a 7/16 bolt through the tire itself is just a little bit loose. A better fit is actually a 1/2 inch bolt. I got grade 8 bolts, so real heavy duty bolts here. A 7/16 would fit real nicely through these holes. However, a 1/2 inch does not. So what I ended up doing is coming in and drilling a hole out just a little bit bigger to be able to accommodate this bolt. The plan is to slide that through there. We'll put a washer on, we'll put the tire on, put another washer on, then we'll put a lock nut here, maybe a nylon lock nut. And then what we'll do is we'll mount this up on the bottom side of the frame. It gives it a little bit extra room under there. We don't have any of the stuff sticking out the side of the coupe. The only thing I'm debating on is how I cut this. This is a 36-inch piece or a 3-foot piece. I could come in, I could cut it off at a 1-foot increment. I could cut it off at 18 inches, you know, halfway. Really what I think I'm gonna do is cut it off in 1-foot increment. And the big reason I'm just going for something quite as big is I just wanna spread out that weight. This coupe is not exactly the lightest thing out there. Spreading out the weight as I connect this up, it helps spread out where those bolts actually reside in there, so it's not a potential of something splitting, as well as diversifying or spreading out that weight a little bit more evenly across that 2x4. So we may have one little thing I might have overlooked. Can you guess what that is? So obviously this will mount here on the bottom side, so actually not on the top here, but on the bottom of this 2x4. It'll fit really nice. We got plenty of space here to be able to secure things down, distribute that out. However, putting this wheel onto this axle, it's a little snug here, but once we get it, you can see, this wheel's not going to turn because of the side here. So we actually need to space this wheel out a little bit. I have quite a pile of washers here that fit on here. I can do this. Put the tire back on. The one thing I really worry about, obviously the further we push the tire away, the more twist and turn that's going to be put onto this support here. The good part is this is a little bit of a longer piece, but you can see putting that pile of spacers works just fine. Then we can put a washer here, put our lock nut on, and we should be on our way to go. The bad part is I don't want to have to run all the way down to the store to buy a whole bunch more washers. So I think what I might do, just looking around what I have, and I have a little piece of copper pipe that ended up getting cut out of somewhere. That fits right on here. I can cut out the spacing that I need, put a couple washers on the outside just so it's holding that gap. Slide the wheel on, put another washer on, put the lock nut on, and away we go. So keep that in mind. Maybe there's a way this can get tweaked a little bit. But I thought I'd better update you guys. If someone else is going to try this same method here, that is one little downfall. But I think everything is going to be strong and sturdy enough that there shouldn't be an issue there. So one of the next things we gotta do is actually get the axles mounted here. Now the tricky part is trying to figure out where I'm going to place these. Obviously the further we move them forward, the less weight you have to pick up to actually move the thing. However, you don't want it to be too far forward. You get a handful of chickens in the back of the coop, the thing then ends up tipping up in the air. So I think what I'm gonna do is start off with 2 feet. I put a mark on there. I'll shoot to put the axle right at that point. If I have to, I can move it. It's just going to get a little bit more difficult the further we get down the road. While I'm looking at this as well, I think one other thing I might do is actually cut a couple 2x4s and mount to the back side of this that come up to the top of this. Because obviously the weight of the tire is going to have a natural tendency to want to twist it. So with the opening holes here, I can drive some screws actually into that board there and just add a little additional support as well. You know, one other thing I was thinking to help prevent some of that twisting is I could actually take a board and run it across here. It definitely would sturdy things up, and I could connect through and run some bolts going into the board that way. That might be another option as well. How cool is that? I'm really excited. I did have to make a little minor adjustment. I don't know if you noticed when I set it down, the door actually stuck out a little bit. I had to slide the hinges back a little bit. The way it feels, at least right now on the concrete with the balance, the wheels could definitely come forward just a little bit. I can feel a lot of the weight here. However, I don't think it's really too bad, so I'll leave them where they are now. If I need to, I'll come back, make some little minor adjustments. But now the next part is we'll actually start getting some of this roof built here real quick. So we're making some great progress here. I did end up running out of some of these screws. I just have to finish this last row right here, and then we're on our way. So I have to pick up another box, but blew through both the boxes I have. The next step in the instructions is actually to get the handle put into place, but I did want to point out something, because the step after that is actually get your latches put in for your roof, since the roof is on hinges. However, if it was me writing up these instructions, I would definitely have put these latches on prior to actually putting the roofing on, because it gets a whole lot harder to be able to access this. I got to come up here, and then you can see here's the bottom of the roof right up there. So I got to figure out, or kind of squirm around, just a little bit more of a difficult process to be able to get this up there, get the screws in and all that stuff, where if the roofing wasn't on there, it might be a little bit easier to get access to. So I wanted to point that out. If someone else is thinking about building one of these and looking into this, I would probably move that step up just right after you get the framing of this stuff into place. So now it's time to get the handles attached. Look how beautiful this piece is, all that multicolor in there. I just think it's so pretty. The other side's totally just clean looking, so actually I'll face this on the outside here. So we're to the point right now of getting the arms attached, and I've been toying around with some different ideas on how to deal with this. So you're not familiar with Justin Rhodes Chickshaw. You basically got a board that runs like this on both sides. There's generally a hole that's drilled through these where you have a rod that runs 6 feet across to both of them. You pick the thing up, you move everything. That rod also slides out so wild birds don't land on it, and you know, all that stuff. Then you can also take the rod, flip it up, and it actually helps hold the roof open. However, the one thing I've observed is a lot of times this is the weak part. You generally have to drill a fairly large hole for a rod that's going to be able to support going across 6 feet and strong enough to be able to pull around a little bit of weight. And a lot of times this board ends up cracking here, and I'm thinking about changing things up. Kind of the idea I'm toying around with right now is generally you're moving things, you're picking it up. So if I did like a 2x2 that ran across the two, but instead of going through, what happens if we created like sort of a little bracket area that it kind of locked into as you picked it up. So take something like this, bend it to the correct angle needed, same sort of thing in the front. So it's sitting down at the right angle, so we'll have to figure out some angle stuff. I could also maybe take something like a large angle like this and try to figure out something, and then you just kind of pop that 2x4. Another thing that I saw Gillowbrook Farms do, I thought was really a good idea, is they kind of built this holster system that sat in here, and there was a pipe that sat inside another pipe that slid out, and they had pins that locked in. It was kind of a nice thing. But theirs wasn't really a Chickshaw. It was, but it wasn't. They really beefed that thing up quite a bit. But that's another idea if you're playing around with some stuff. But right now, I think what I'm going to do is try to do some sort of system like this, see how it works. I guess worst case scenario, I can always come back and do the original plan or try something else. So if you got some suggestions or some ideas, I'd love to hear them in the comments. So I am going to end up going with that method. I actually got two of those brackets here, you can see. Pretty darn close on the same amount of bend here. I just stuck them in a bench vise and just started squeezing them a little bit, and I actually overbent them just a little bit, and to straighten them out, you can see there's that little point there. So I think what I'm going to do, a little more work, but I don't mind it. See that line drawn there? I'm going to come in, take a jigsaw, and just custom cut it so it should fit really nice in there. I'll zip a couple bolts into it, and we'll see how this works out. It's been working pretty good so far, going forward, back. Haven't really taken out a long journey yet, but I've been pretty pleased with that so far. Granted, I don't have a bunch of birds loaded into it, so only time will tell here. I got that 2x2. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it when it's not in use. I was thinking about hooking up some sort of mounting system up there in the front where it just hung off, or maybe even right here going on the sides. However, I think the smartest thing to do, and one of my big worries has always been with this coop, is there's 3 milk crates that are going to go in here. I just got to get my stuff in action here. And they'll slide out, you get access to the eggs, slide them back in. But you do get like certain predators like raccoons that are relatively smart. And I'm just worried about them coming up, sitting on the roof or something, kind of pawing at the thing and then getting it out and having a free access to the whole entire coop. So I think killing 2 birds with 1 stone, we can take that 2x2, we can figure out some sort of mounting system, hooks on there, put that rod there when it's in place, preventing the milk crates from being able to slide out, as well as holding that. Next time I go down to the hardware store, I'm going to look for some brackets. I got to get my milk crate stuff situated, and I still have to get the last couple of those roofing bolts to finish off everything, but looking pretty good so far.